Yojimbo, oh, well, they stole this person and that. Blah, blah, blah. Here you actually saw, like, that's the first, like, act of injustice that the man with no name sees. So the kid wants to see his mom, but he's, like, thrown out and kicked and all that, and the dad gets beat up, and you're like, okay. And then, you know, and then we get our one one bit of explanation of some kind of backstory for this guy, because they're like, well, why are you doing this? He's like, well, I knew somebody like you once, and there was no one around to help him, so I knew that, and I like how that's vague enough. You're like, all right, like, is that his sister? Is that his mom? Is that his love of his life? Who knows, right?
He was the boy, Zach.
Okay,
we need to make the prequel A Fistful of Pennies.
There it is,
where it's all about him. So
coming soon with Scott Eastwood. Yes.
Yes. Maybe this is this is gonna be the reveal for The Mandalorian when we get to the last episode of The Mandalorian.
He's gonna take it off. It's gonna be Scott Eastwood. So.
It's just me this
anyway,
way.
so yeah, that's my take on how this compared to Yojimbo.
See, that's interesting because I liked it better in Yojimbo as well for that plot, because I liked how the Japanese couple didn't want to leave. And he's like, you guys are messing me up here. Get out of here. Right? And them talking in another town is what gave away his double crossery, right? So I kind of like that, because that's the factor that he couldn't control, is the people that he saved in that movie. And here it was just like, you know, a random thing of like, oh, we had to come back to town and found out that there was something
one
going
of
on
our wheels was broken on our wagon, and but still, I think that's something out of his control, and I like that they carry that over, because Yojimbo, like, he's such like a master of every scenario. Or Sanjuro, should I say, is a master of every scenario in both his films, Yojimbo and Sanjuro. Same thing here with The Man with No Name. Like he's a savvy guy, but he's not omniscient, and he can't predict every possible thing. So he does, and that's when we fall into the exact same third act of, like, he gets caught, he gets beat up, he has to get saved by the Undertaker guy. So there you have it. But I do, obviously, you know, it's in the same things that we all found Sanjuro so charming in his films. I find the same endearing qualities in The Man with No Name here in Clint Eastwood's character.
I find the two, it has been fascinating comparing them, because I think Sanjuro, although he keeps his own counsel, you know, you can see the cogs working in his head, but I find him a very external character, and you kind of know what he's feeling all the time, whether he's troubled, whether he's frustrated, and Mifune is such a great actor. You can kind of see all this in his face and his body language. Is he disinterested? Is he annoyed? Whereas I find The Man with No Name, Clint Eastwood's Joe, is a bit more internal. You know, he gives a bit less away, I think. And so I think they're both great in their own way. I think Eastwood will grow a bit as the movies go, not greatly. I don't think he's at the height of his powers here, you know, because this is like... He was a bit player and stuff up until now, you know. Probably Rawhide was the biggest role he ever had. He wasn't a leading man
this was his
yet.
first leading role. Yes.
Yeah. So
he also led in Revenge of the Creature there.
But, you know, so I don't think he's at the height of his powers yet, but I think that comes quite quickly with him. But yeah, the really interesting comparison between the two.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, it is tough to like compare this on its own, like just to talk about it on its own because of Yojimbo. Like I think this is a pale version of Yojimbo. Like I think Yojimbo's much better than this movie. This is good, but I don't think it's a great movie now. It'll be interesting to see the next two and how they go, because again, those will be first time watches for me. But the only scene that I really felt was superior in this one was when that big barrel killed those guys. I thought that was a really interesting scene and a really surprising moment in the film. And how he escaped from there I really liked, because in Yojimbo he just hides inside that one case and they come in and don't see him and leave, right? He just hides in
Must
there.
not be in here.
Must not be here, right? So yeah, I did like that scene quite a bit more. But I mean, like, other than that, I mean, I don't know what more I've got to say on this movie because I've said it all in Yojimbo already, right? So Zach, is there, like, help me with the direction of this discussion here.
Well, yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting production value things, like the opening credits, for example. I love those. They're very Hitchcockian or even James Bondian, in a way.
Yeah.
The animated figures, and that's a great, clever way to, like, we're going to show a lot of violence, but it's the 1960s and really can't, so they're going to be like cartoon, outlines. I thought that was a good way to kind of get you into the world. But also, just the they did some interesting things with it, just randomly, like not throughout the whole film, but like interesting things with the camera. Like in the final confrontation, we get like a point of view shot, of one of the Rojo's brothers, right? And he's like all like swinging around, and he like goes up and sees the sun. It was like, oh wow, that's unique. I didn't see that, and anywhere else in the film, and so I think little moments like that make it real cool. And I think the I think the blueprint for the Western showdown is the climax of this film. Just the camera shots, the close. I mean, Sergio Leone's famous for these extreme close-ups, faces and eyes and stuff. And I think every other Western has kind of looked at this as a blueprint for like a final confrontation. So I think there's a lot of DNA here that will go on for decades as far as Westerns go.
Yeah, you can definitely see the influence that this had on the genre of films. Absolutely.
And also, we have Chekhov's suit of armor, right? Because as soon as we saw that suit of armor, it's like, what's this for? Oh, he uses it for target practice. I'm like, oh, all right, I know where this is going to go. Because they established that Mexican proverb where a man with a rifle will always beat a man with a pistol, right? Because when he does show, just jump ahead at the end, right? But when Clint Eastwood does show up at the end, he's like, you got to let him go, and then he just gets shot. I was like, oh, okay. And he just keeps getting up, but he knows that the Rojo's brother is going to just keep shooting for the heart because he's seen him just obsessively shoot, for the heart. So he uses that knowledge against him there, and I think it's a really clever showdown. And then even he has a level of honor to the point of like he could have just shot him there, but he throws him the rifle. He's like, reload. We're going to test your theory about a pistol versus a rifle. So it's a fair fight at the end. And I do feel like there was a more one-on-one kind of confrontational thing here in this one than in Yojimbo, because I was expecting some kind of like the guy that looked like the Japanese Jack Howler, and as I described him in Yojimbo, like I was like, oh, is he gonna fight Sanjuro? They're gonna have a one-on-one thing at the end. And the only real correlation I could find to the the guy with the pistol in the Land of Swords was when they break out the machine gun, in the gold exchange. I was like, oh, this is like the advanced technology element in this Land of Pistols. This guy has a machine gun, so. Some other correlations that I found, but those are kind of some overall things that kind of stuck out to me about the film.
Do we want to just kind of jump into our ratings, Tom? Is there anything else that we want to talk about that you missed here?
No, it's quite difficult for me to talk about this one and not just be like, but they do it better in the second one, or they do it better in the third one, because those ones are where my heart really lies. This one, I don't think anyone's really at the peak of their powers yet. I think it's a more important movie than it is a great movie. It certainly made an impact at the time, but it was the kind of impact where it then gets bettered. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I appreciate it on a lot of levels, but I think it's very scrappy. Sergio Leone, I think this was only like his second movie. I don't think he's at the height of his powers yet either, but he sure sort of acquires those powers quickly. So it's the movie that I need to get through to get to where I really want to be.
Mm-hmm. So this is like the Phantom Menace of the trilogy?
You could say that. I'm not sure it would have been my first thought, but you could say that.
Because I can't compare it to Star Wars, because Star Wars is a 5-star film, right? So, anyways. Awesome, right on. Well, Zach, it's been a while since we recorded here, so what do we do first? Do we do ratings, or are we going to do our money exchange?
We're going to do our money exchanges. So
money exchanges. I got my written down here. Tom, do you remember the money exchanges?
I didn't even remember the rating, so I will say 6.
6? Okay, so this is going to depend on how Zach counts this.
Okay.
Because it's either 3 or it's 5.
Oh, okay, because I got 6 as well. So
oh, did you? Okay, so I must have missed
you
one
and
then.
your notes, Brandon. So here's what I have, and we can
18.2.
We can compare. So the Rojas brothers.
I'll tell you my caveat though. 2 of the exchanges we didn't see.
Okay, well we'll see here. Well, we'll just
the $500 twice. We didn't actually see the money change hands. So I was like, that's why I was wondering how you would count that one.
Well,
so.
we can hash this out together and then decide.
Yes.
So the first one I have is the Rojas brothers. They give the man with no name $100.
Yeah.
And then he gives most of the money back because again, being the man of honor, he's like, I don't take more than what I think I earn, that kind of thing. So he gives them some money back. So that's your second one. And then the sheriff gives. I see. We didn't see this on screen, right? She's like, pay the man the $500, right? The sheriff's wife. So I would say we should keep it because they literally, it's like a dialogue of pay this man, and he gets paid obviously. So the sheriff gives man with no name $500. That's our third one. Mm-hmm. And then when man with no name goes and tells the Rojas brothers about the cemetery situation, they give him $500. So that's our fourth one.
Which we also didn't see, right? He just says $500 and then it cuts, right? But then next time you see him, he's still putting the money in his pocket.
So that is the money there. So. And then from the Baxters, they give the money to a man with no name because of the exchanging of Marisol for the son. And then the sixth one I have is when man with no name gives Marisol and her family the money, and they run off at the end. So those are the six that I have. So.
Yeah, and the one that I missed was the very second one because I think I just lumped that into one exchange myself. So 6. You want to call it 6?
Yeah, 6 is good. So so we have that's 6 for this film, which brings us to a grand total of 12 money exchanges so far because we had 5 in Yojimbo, and we had 1 in Sanjuro, which would be 6 plus 6. Last time I checked, that's 12. So thank you for bearing with us in our money exchange count. It would be so easy to be like, how would a death count, right? I mean, it's like try to do something more creative when there's more creative opportunities.
Yep.
And when you have, bounty hunters and bodyguards, lots of money is exchanging heads. So we got 12 so far in this franchise. But let's get down to the ratings then. Tom, out of $5, would you give this a fistful of dollars or no?
No. I gotta be maybe a little harsh on it. I'm torn between like $2.50 and $3, but I'll be generous and go 3. I don't think it's all coming together yet, but it's certainly an important movie.
Mm-hmm. Zach, how much money?
I guess I like this more than y'all. I'm gonna give it 4 out of $5. For context, I gave Sanjuro 5 out of $5. But I thought, for a Western retelling of the story. That we saw in Yojimbo. Did I say Sanjuro? They're very similar names, people. So the film this was a remake of, I gave 5, and for this I gave 4. Mm-hmm. So and then it was very visceral too. In the same way that that Yojimbo was very visceral, like blood and arms being chopped off and bones and dogs carrying hands. I think there was some brutal stuff in here. I mean, he is just gunning people down, especially. When the Baxters come out and their house is on fire, and he's like, don't shoot, and then the Rojas, they shoot them both anyway, and then the mom comes out and they shoot them too, and that's very similar to what happens in Yojimbo. But I think that kind of visceralness, and then also just the strength of the understated Clint Eastwood performance, as well as the iconography of the Western showdown at the end, which is classic. So I got a lot of fulfillment out of this, so I'm going to give it 4 out of $5. So what about you, Brandon?
Mm-hmm. So when I rate my movies, that I generally tend to rate them pretty high. Like I rate on the higher scale. And while when I rate my movies, I generally come down to how much did I enjoy watching this film. It's not really about quality or anything like that. So this one I was actually a little bit torn on because when I watched it twice, the first time I rated it 3, and then watching it again, I wanted to give it a 4 because I'm like, it's a really well-made film. But then I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm like, but I don't really have any desire to see this movie anytime soon again, right? So as though it's made well. Like if I was rating it on how well it was made, I'd probably have to say 4. But my final rating on it, I'm going to stick with my 3 because it was good, but I'm not in any rush to watch it again, So, for Tom and Zach there, we're talking about Godzilla movies behind the scene and whatnot. And, like the majority of these Godzilla movies I'm giving 2 stars because I'm like, they're not that great, right?